Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. The following content may involve explicit language and materials, so listener discretion is advised.
Okay, take two, everybody. I might leave some of that stuff in for bloopers for my Patreon page for some of it. I apologize. Some technical issues, but we are back. And again, with us is Leslie and Steven, and they are authors. They have a book out. It's UFO based. I'm super, super excited because I don't get a lot of alien UFO type people or people with expertise on the show. So I never get a chance to ask these questions and go over this stuff. And I'm so excited. So I'm going to go ahead again. So there's the UFO book, who they are and what they're up to. And I'm going to turn the floor over to them, give them a minute to kind of introduce themselves, how they got into this, a little bit about their book, whatever they want to do. It's going to be their time to shine. And then we'll just kind of dive in. So after you guys.
Hi, Natasha. Thanks so much for having us and for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. I am a journalist by trade. I did most of the writing in the book, but Stephen wrote his personal family experiences into the book, and we're co-researchers. Stephen has a more scientific education than I do, and that was critically important for several chapters in the book. So we make a good working team. I think I started thinking about writing a book about this subject when I saw my first UFO. Stephen had lots of experiences, and frankly, I was a little jealous. I wanted to see it too, and then there it was one night, and I've seen two now, but the first one was so life-changing. We were driving from we were in Joshua Tree driving towards Yucca Valley, and I saw a big white light up in the sky, and I thought it was maybe a plane coming into Palm Springs Airport, but it didn't behave like a plane. It didn't have little flashing running lights on either side, and it was just hovering there. And as we drove towards it, it was getting brighter and brighter. So maybe it was coming towards us, and we were coming towards it, and we're staring at it for a few moments, maybe a couple of minutes even, and it shot away over the northern horizon and was gone in like a quarter of a second. I would have said it was going multiple tens of thousands of miles an hour, maybe 20,000 miles an hour. And it went at that speed instantly. It didn't ramp up slowly to that speed. It just was, just streaked out in a line and was gone.
Yeah.
And, a white light in the sky can be any number of things, but when it behaves like that, then it can't be anything else but a UFO. And how about you, Stephen? When did you first think about the book?
I started thinking about the book really about over 35 years ago when I started doing some more serious research into it because my family bloodline has had interactions with what we were considering for 3 generations as being the family spirit guide that was called O'Glegley.
All right.
This tall entity that's about 6.5 to 7 feet tall that would appear and help family members out or be there at certain times. And I just was raised with this knowledge as a child. So when I was 3 years of age, I was living at the Fallbrook House in Woodland Hills, California, and I would be visited by this entity that would jump on my chest and my stomach when I was 3 years of age in the middle of the night, and kind of like a cat, but an invisible cat.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
So it wasn't menacing; it was just playful. So okay, we got O'Glegley, family spirit guide. It's probably O'Glegley. And of course, when you're a child, you don't necessarily tell your friends about this kind of stuff because they say you're lying or you're
crazy,
you're living in a haunted house or you're nuts, something like that. So I didn't tell it. We kept it amongst the family. So the first UFO that I actually saw was about the age of 10 or 11. I can't remember for sure. It was around that area. And I was just happened to be looking out the front door about 9 o'clock at night. It was the winter time. And I saw this very, very large orange globe that was just moving from south
to north. Yeah.
south to north, and just kind of hovering and then moving and hovering and then kind of moving. And it was certainly not an airplane. I mean, there was Burbank Airport that was 20 miles away, but it was certainly not any type of landing pattern. So it just kind of kept on moving. So I called Griffith Park Observatory the next day and I asked them about that, and they had no knowledge of it whatsoever. So also around about that time was one of my strangest experiences of missing time. I was sleeping in a bunk bed, the top of a bunk bed. My brother, being 6 years younger than me, he was sleeping in the bottom. So let's say I'm about 10 and he's 6 years younger, so he's about 4. So anyways, I was awakened by this strange sound. It wasn't the dog. So I decided to do some investigating. So I got out of the bed and I started walking down the hallway, and there was a little light on in the kitchen so I could see where I was going. But I was literally terrified. I knew something was weird.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, and my heart was pounding, and I was definitely in adrenal mode. And so I was alert, to put it mildly, and I was about ready to turn the corner to go into the living room, and then I just black out. I'm just black out.
Oh.
And the next thing I remember is a few hours later, I'm back in my bunk bed, all nicely tucked in, and I just have no explanation for what happened. Now, also around this time too, when I was about 8, one time I saw what I call little garden gnomes that were walking into my bedroom.
That's so cool.
And they were literally like little shimmery garden gnomes, literally 4 or 5 of them, about maybe 12 inches tall. And I saw them and I kind of was kind of a little scared. So I kind of turned away, but I saw them. So anyways, when my brother Philip, when he turned about the same age that I saw the garden gnomes, he started sleeping in the closet. And I asked Philip, for 2 years, he slept in the closet. I said, Philip, why are you sleeping in the closet? He said, well, I'm afraid of the little men that come in the middle of the night.
Oh.
And I believed him because I had remembered seeing that myself. Okay. So it was like, again, you don't tell your friends about this kind of stuff. They just think you're nuts.
Yep.
Okay. So we kept all this stuff, and our family spirit guy is called O'Glegley. And this O'Glegley character would show up and, in different times would help, multi-generational people. Even my Uncle Doug, who was a Griffiths, but he was married to my mom's older sister. He was in the Royal Air Force right after World War II, and he was stationed in Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. And so, anyways, he knew about O'Glegley, about the thing, but he never seen O'Glegley, but he knew about O'Glegley. And he was awakened in the middle of the night when he was stationed in this multi-man a tent that usually housed between 20 and 40 men, right? He's awake in the middle of the night by this tall, dark figure with a red fez that said, Douglas, happen to know his name, said, Douglas, you need to get out right now. There's a raiding party coming and you may be killed. And he just intuitively knew that it was O'Glegley. So he got up.
Well, don't forget, then he vanishes, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, then this figure just vanishes. Just vanishes, gone.
I'm just picturing like a guy, when you get off the airplane and they have the sign and it's got your name on it. He's just like standing there like, hey, over here.
Yeah, except this O'Glegley character just vanished. Okay. And it's like, So it was Douglas got out of the tent, and about a minute or two later, a raiding party came through with machetes and, with some guns, and killed several of the pilots. And so my uncle recanted this story a couple different times when I was growing up. He was a very, very intelligent man, extremely intelligent and very wealthy. And he was, in escrow and banking. And so he had no reason to lie about this stuff. In fact, his only daughter, Cheryl, her first car had the license plate O'Glegley.
Yeah.
What?
So-
That is
Did a
so
vanity
cool.
plate, yeah.
Made it a vanity. This was back in the 70s. This is back in like the
Yeah.
early mid 70s. And yeah, she had her, I swear to God, her license plate was O'Glegley.
We
Okay.
noticed that with the family a lot, where old Gligley would be like a protector,
Yeah.
but we think that he was also preying on the family
A handler
with
kind of
the
too.
the abduction phenomenon. Because after we started comparing notes with other family members and reading more about it and studying the phenomenon, the abduction phenomenon, when we first started looking into it, the theories were that the aliens are just curious about us and they're just taking samples from a cross section of humanity out of scientific curiosity.
Yeah.
But as we looked into it, we discovered that that was not the case of what was happening. What happens is that they find a particular strain of DNA that they like, that meets their criteria, whatever it is.
Serves a purpose.
And yeah.
Right. The purpose. Right.
And then they'll prey on that member of the family for years, just again and taking again and again and again. And then they'll start taking their kids and then their grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And in Stephen's family, O'Glegley has been with the family for at least 3 generations. He comes from a very psychic family. The women in his family have all been automatic writers, and his sister just started doing it too recently. Explain what automatic writing is for the listeners.
Are you familiar with automatic writing, Natasha? At all?
Yes. A lot of my stuff, I call some stuff that I do a little strange. I don't do automatic or I've never even attempted to do automatic writing, but that general genre, it tends to be, premonitions and seeing things and sensing things and knowing, what people are thinking and that kind of stuff. That's,
yeah.
And being aware of things that are not always, sometimes I can see them. Sometimes I just know they're here. Sometimes I hear them. Sometimes, so I have a lot of interactions, as far as that goes. I do know about automatic writing. I've never tried it or anything like that, but I am aware of just kind of how that works. But yeah, so, as far as I understood, automatic writing is kind of almost like you're writing, but you're not writing. Someone else is writing through you. And you're not in control necessarily of what's happening. You're just basically a vessel that is providing it because whatever is trying to do so can't pick up the pencil itself and do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I do the
Exactly.
same. I do the same thing with music. I just will get an inspiration, especially on the piano or sometimes the accordion, but like a lot on the piano, where I will just feel like I'm kind of impelled to like play, and I will write some of the best stuff I've ever done just because I feel this. That's the way I channel. I channel
like
through
channels music or something.
I've channeled. I've also tried automatic writing when I was like 15 and 16, and I really did not like it. I was able to do it, but I just felt it was just too creepy for me.
Yeah, to me, nobody would want me to be their automatic writer because I'm a sloppy left-handed writer. It would look like a drunk doctor was trying to sign your script or something.
I'm left-handed, but when I was trying automatic writing, I would write with my right hand.
Interesting.
Yeah, and my grandmother, she would write in a couple different languages. One was in Arabic and another was English. And my mom told me stories when she was a kid as far as stuff they would do, like with table levitations and other stuff with a Ouija board. And
well, I don't fuck with no Ouija boards.
I don't. My sister and I did, and we got it moving without even our fingers being on the planchette. So it was just too strong. I did not want to do it.
You almost can't get back in. Like whatever you get out, to me, there's not enough control of the situation. And I think part of it too is I don't poke the bear, I guess. I'm here. They know I'm here. I think it's just that I am a beacon of some sort because they flock and I don't ask for it. I don't try to do things. It just happens, and it just happens so often that I'm kind of used to it by now. So it's just kind of like my nature or just part of my everyday life. And I feel like a lot of times if you're reaching out, there's so many things that are very, very, very negative that are not,
yes, that's for
human
sure.
for starters, especially that are so good at acting like they are whatever human you're trying to get. I don't trust anything coming across. And I don't trust that it'll go away when you tell it to go away. I mean, like most of the stuff I do, like I talk to mine like they're people because, well, all but one pretty much was. And, they stop. If I'm like, hey, knock it off, like I need to go to bed, they'll stop.
Yes.
And they leave me alone for a while. But I don't feel like if I summon something, I feel like that just crosses a line that you can't really get back from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get something negative, something
like
really
my first Tai Chi teacher taught me that, if you learn how to open a door, you better also learn how to close it.
Yep.
You have to set boundaries. Okay. You have to set boundaries and, the typical things like surrounding yourself with white light and doing your mantras and things such as that. So yes, I mean, they're powers that we have as human beings. We have these powers and, and a lot of people, they become atrophied because you never learned how to use them. Like, for instance, everybody can be telepathic. I mean, it's something that we have, a certain part of the brain that.
Yeah, it's latent in us.
It's latent.
We think it's
in most
kind of
people.
Atrophied in most humans.
Yeah, it's just like a muscle you don't use. If you ever do a pull-up, you're never going to be able to do a pull-up because your latissimus dorsi muscles just never get used. Okay. So yeah, it's a simple thing like that. It's very, very simple. And it's like, it's not unusual. As Tom Jones would say, not unusual.
I mean, oh my gosh, then I'm going to be singing.
Yeah, I know.
I go to spontaneous songs sometimes. So I got to try really hard not to. I do it a lot, or movie quotes. So
yeah, we're kind of that way too. We kind of go that way too. Yeah. So it's okay. It's fun. We like to keep it fun and light.
I agree.
So back to the subject at hand, though.
Yeah.
Philip, Stephen's brother, we've noticed that these events tend to come in clusters. And I don't know exactly why, but Philip, yeah, you too, huh? What?
No,
you have a question. That's the speaking hand.
That's the speaking hand.
Okay. When you guys recorded with Kevin from where the weird ones are, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When did you guys do that?
I'm sorry, I don't have the.
A couple months ago.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Between a month or 2 months ago.
It's around. So. It's around there. Yeah.
Interesting fact, just so that you're aware. I recorded 2 episodes with Kevin one day, and so in my studio, you'll see them kind of here. They're kind of hard to see, but they're kind of spread out. They're my cat balls. So my sensors go off if somebody wants to, say hi. They just hit the sensor and the light goes off. Oh. When I was on the call with Kevin, we had a ball. This one right here was going bananas. Like the moment he got on the call, it was just rapid. And I was like, well, I wonder if we can figure out who it is. So I turned my phone on and the only thing that popped up is it just goes, Philip, and then just quiet. Nothing. So we're like, I'm like, is your name Philip? And the ball went bananas.
Really?
The entire time we recorded, for like an hour and a half. Then we stopped and I had another recording with somebody else. No movement at all the whole time. Then I got Kevin back on later that evening and the ball started going again. And it was like responding to Philip, but we couldn't figure out who the hell Philip was.
Well, he is our brother, and
my younger brother.
He's no longer among the living now, so he could be visiting.
I wonder if there's something about Philip.
Yeah, could. There's lots of stuff.
My sister, who now is using the spirit boxes and using FLIR cameras, and
she's a ghost hunter.
She's a ghost hunter with her husband in England. They go this ghostly location.
Yes, ghostly location.
But yeah, she's been in contact. He says Philip is a very strong spirit, and she's been in contact with him quite a bit. Just in our book, we talk about how my father died from cancer unnecessarily on August 25th of 2017, which was the day of the big eclipse, apart from the most recent one here. Okay.
Yeah.
And then my brother was taking care of my mom at the house that my dad and I had built with Philip also. My brother was an engineer and a draftsman. He taught calculus at a college level for fun, for extra money. So a big guy, 6'3", and built like a refrigerator.
Yeah, big guy.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, make a long story short, on his birthday, December the 1st, he took a shotgun and killed my mom and killed himself. Well, what he did, he killed both.
Some horrible things.
He killed both his cats first.
Oh,
And
wow.
then he basically, it was like a mercy killing, I think, really what it ended up.
She was very sick.
My mom was.
And he wasn't
very,
well either,
yeah.
so it's possible.
But
we also think he was never what you'd call emotionally stable young man. We think that maybe the early trauma of the alien abduction experience may have given him some PTSD.
Yeah.
Because he kind of behaved that way a lot, and like he was paranoid a lot, and at the end of his life he became ultra paranoid and changed all the locks and put video cameras all over the house,
inside and out. Yeah, he thought that I was living on the property, I was 550 miles away from the house.
Yeah,
I thought I was
sneaking in at night.
Thought I was in stealing coffee, paranoid stuff like that. So apparently the coffee was being hidden. So it was like, I was really really shocked. But this is what people do, especially if they're like being sleep deprived. Because he started hearing noises. He started hearing like things crashing. And he thought that I was there, like, rummaging through. But, I've heard crashing sounds and knocks behind my head, like, boom, like always in threes. I've heard like somebody like knocking right behind my head on the wall, at least 100, maybe 150 times. And, other noises too that are in the room.
Yeah.
But they're not in the room, but they're just, just on the other side of, the veil. But they're there.
Yeah.
Okay, they're there. But it's like, Phil was just starting to experience that. What I wish I'd said, Phil, I'm not living in a tent. Okay, this is stuff I've been experiencing my whole life.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was very. 2017 was a horrendously bad year for us.
Yeah, that was the
horrendous.
The year of all
we lost a dog. Our favorite dog, Leslie lost her father within 2 days, and then everything else happened. I lost almost my whole family apart from my sister.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was horrible.
It was a tough year.
It was horrible.
But Philip, when he was younger, he had one of these clusters of events that this is what made us believe that it was
when he was 16,
the gray aliens. Like I said, they come in clusters. The first night, he awakened to white lights shining in his bedroom window at the Sonora house in Central California.
Which is very woodsy, and there's no roads around there.
Yeah, and his bedroom kind of was a drop-off to a creek and then a mountain on the other side, fully treed. So there was no road in the distance or houses or anything out there. And these lights were very bright, right into his window. And he stared at him for a few seconds trying to figure out what they were, and then he blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next night, he was laying in bed, and he heard a scrabbling sound on the floor, and he assumed it was one of the cats. So he reached down to pet the cat, and instead, a hand grabbed his wrist.
No.
And he...
a human hand, not a cat.
A human-ish hand, anyway. And he felt this thrill of terror, like, you would in that situation.
Then blacks out.
And instantly blacks out. You don't just fall asleep when you're terrified, right? So whatever it was, they have this ability to dampen your consciousness.
Fight or flight, the adrenaline just pops in there, you're like.
Yeah. And then the third night, he awoke to see a tall gray alien in his room staring at him. And
in the doorway,
and they were just staring back and forth at each other for a second, and then again blacked out. And that's when we started comparing notes with other family members, and we finally realized that all these incidents might be related to the abduction phenomenon. They might be O'Glegley, maybe our gray alien handler, so to speak, for the family.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is like they're harvesting a product from us. And it's not like just scientific samples. They actually are collecting mass amounts of DNA from younger people, especially. Philip was 16 and Stephen was 18 when he had most of his
we haven't even talked about.
Yeah, we'll go to that next.
Yeah, that's next.
Yeah, that's next. But that was when we realized that probably O'Glegley is a tall gray alien, and they have been both preying on the family and protecting the family for many generations, because it's like your prize cow, right? The farmer takes the milk, but he also protects it,
He's protecting his asset.
Right.
Not that he really cares about who you are, or what you're he just wants you because he needs you alive to do what he needs to do.
That's what we think. And that's why there
necessity.
These interventions in the family where he would save family members, we believe.
So I have a question about just appearances. So you describe it as a tall gray, and I have a specific question for a reason. Okay, so, typically grays are short. They've got the big, it looks like a balloon head.
Right, bigger head than ours, yes.
And now the tall one that you're seeing, was his head smooth, like rounded on the top? Like, here, hold on a second. Get my little guy here I made. Was it like smooth like this on the top with like the pointy at the bottom?
Did he describe it well to you, Stephen, as far as the shape of the head?
Okay, when I talk about the one that I saw, I'd say it'd be more like that.
Okay.
Not bulbous, okay, not bulbous, more uniform, okay?
Okay.
But tall, okay? See, the one thing, the commonality I found out from my Uncle Doug and from Philip and from what I saw, the one commonality is that very slender, about 6.5 to 7 feet tall, and with large eyes, but the head wasn't abnormally big, but it was more like symmetrical. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, but anyways, but also there was the element of telepathy involved. So, anyways, I'm going to recount what we have in the beginning of the book as far as what my whole family experienced over 5 nights.
In 1979.
In 1979, January of 1979, I was 18. And the first night started out with my dad at breakfast time said that, Stephen, I was a cabinet maker. My dad was a master cabinet maker, and I was working with him. So anyways, he said, Stephen, my closet doors opened and closed on me last night. And I just kind of like said, okay, Dad, that's kind of, interesting. And I didn't really think too much of it. So the next night, just to give a little bit of background here, I was studying Tai Chi, and I became a Tai Chi master, and I also taught Tai Chi for 23 years. So anyways, at that point in my life, I was reading a lot of Paramahansa Yogananda's work. So I gave my dad this little book called Metaphysical Meditations, and I said, Dad, you should read some of this stuff. It's kind of cool. So again, my dad came from Great Britain, so he grew up in wartime England. So anyways, I gave him that book, and about a half an hour later, about 9:30 at night, he came into my room with this quizzical look on his face, said, Stephen, I'm hearing a silver bell. I said, okay, Dad. And I went into the living room, and sure enough, there was a silver bell being rung inside the wall, the 2x4 wall by the fireplace. Myself being a lifelong musician, I know the sound of a silver bell, and so did my dad. So we got my sister, who was 13 at the time, and she, at that time in her life, she didn't want to really have anything to do with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, she thought it was, put on blinders.
She thought it was weird. She was going down the born again Christian route, basically, right? Okay, so anyway, so she said, she said, where's that silver bell coming from?
Yeah.
Said, oh, you hear it too,
Yeah,
right?
it's not just us.
So we started banging on the wall and, looking up the chimney and the flue and went on for a good 10, 15 minutes, and then it just stopped. Now, the next morning, my mom and my brother were living at the house we were building in Sonora, California, which is 350 miles away. And it was our tradition to, talk every morning, all right? And my mom said to my dad, Jeffrey, the weirdest thing happened last night. About 9 o'clock, 9:30, I heard this bell, and I thought it was the phone. And I picked up the phone, and there was this man's voice saying, I am the invisible Beachy, or something like that, right? And
I don't know what that
is. My brother said, my younger brother Philip said, no, the phone didn't ring, but she did pick up the phone, and she swears that there was a voice on the other line. So anyways, the same thing was happening 350 miles apart. So all 5 of us were experiencing some weirdness, right? So the next night, I was sleeping in my bedroom, not on the top bunk, but on the bottom bunk, and I was awakened by this whizzing sound in the ear, this like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was a bug or like something. I just tried to ignore it. I kind of looked down the hallway and there was nothing there. So I just tried to go back to sleep. And then the base of the bed, from the foot of the bed, it was pushed kind of gently 2 times. And growing up in Southern California, I just thought it was like, no, maybe a little earthquake.
Yeah.
Trying to be logical. All right. So then I ignore it, and then it gets pushed a little stronger 2 times again. And then the 3rd time it's a lot stronger. And this time I'm getting a little scared and a little bit weirded out. And then I get tapped like a person with an index finger going tap, tap, tap right on my mid-deltoid of my right arm. At this point, I'm thinking, is somebody screwing with me or what is going on? So I just rolled over and I said, what? And I'm looking at nothing, but I know there's something there.
Yep.
It's a little shimmery, but I know there's something there.
Yeah,
and then I black out. Then I black out. I told my dad about it in the morning. And so anyways, fast forwarding to the next night, I said, I'm not going to sleep in that room. So I decided to sleep in my work clothes, in the living room. So I went to sleep in the living room in my work clothes, and I woke up about 5:30 in the morning. Again, this is January, so it's dark. And I looked at my my piano, thinking about what music I was going to play that day, and I heard Little Fountain in the other room. So I was awake. I was alert. And then this entity, this tall, blue-white entity, about 6.5 to 7 feet tall, came from the front door and just glided towards me in about 1.5 to 2 seconds, about 25 feet it covered, and it stopped by my right side, and then immediately the whole right side of my body, might as well take a knife down it, I was paralyzed. I could not move the right side of my body. Not in a scary way, but it was that I couldn't move my body. And it bent down to my ear and it said, "Hi, Steve."
Oh.
In a kind of a whisper.
Ugh.
And I was thinking, I'm going to see the family spirit guide, O'Glegley, that I'd heard about since being 3 years of age. I'm going to see O'Glegley. And half of me was saying, this is really cool. The other half of me was saying, dude, you can't move. You're paralyzed, you know? And so I was like, at this, you know, I was like half paralyzed, you know, and I was also like, you know, excited but scared at the same time. And so anyways, that lasted for about maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15. And then the entity just basically left and took, oh, by the way, the room was filled with this blue-white light. The whole house, when it came to me, was filled with this intense blue-white light. The whole house. Okay. And, I couldn't see its face, but I knew what it looked like. Okay. I knew that it was gray. It was kind of a gray or Pleiadian looking, whatever, with very skinny.
Mm-hmm.
And just like what I thought O'Glegley would be like, but O'Glegley is always explained to me as being a tall black man with a red fez. So that didn't make sense, but it was still the same shape. So, and then I black out and I told my dad about it. But anyways, 6 hours later, about 11:30 in the morning, my dad and I are getting hungry because we're workmen. And I said, I'll go get some food for us. So I pulled out the coins in my right hand side pocket and the standard American coins, and all these coins, this is the important part. All these coins are magnetized. They're all magnetic.
Well, that's weird.
My dad and I, whatever, I can pick up the coins either by the edge or by the face. It didn't matter. I could pick up the coins and they would stick together. Okay. Just stick together. They're all magnetized. 6.5 hours after this happened. And we just were looking at each other saying, what the heck?
Yeah, that's not right.
American coins.
It's not right.
They specifically design American coins so they can't be magnetized, so that they can keep going in metal vending machines, you know.
And then the last night, which I have no recollection of, but my dad does, the last thing that happened was that my dad was awake in the middle of the night and he saw this intense wall of blue-white light that was shining from my bedroom.
Flooding out of his room.
Yeah, because our hallways were adjacent. Okay, so he saw that. He said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Oh, wow.
He's getting out of bed. He was getting out of bed, and this voice inside of his head said, Jeffrey, just go back to sleep. Nothing to see here. Everything's okay. And don't worry. And that's exactly what he did. And I have no recollection whatsoever of if any entity being in my room at that time. So
I think he was abducted.
It was probably abducted.
And when he was on the ship or whatever, was somehow exposed to this powerful electromagnetic field so strong that it was able to magnetize the coins.
Yeah, this is supposed to not be possible at all. It was just like, it made no sense.
Yeah.
Still, I've asked scientists to explain it to me. I've tried to use really strong magnets to try and reproduce it. Can't be done.
Yeah.
Can't
It's
be
like
done.
something changed the actual like molecular structure of something.
Exactly.
Which to me is more than just using force or something to do it. To me, it feels almost like you would have to deconstruct it and then reconstruct it in a different environment or with a different something inside of it, kind of tainted, kind of like when you can authenticate paintings prior to the nuclear war.
Right.
When we start testing warheads.
Right.
And then afterwards, even doesn't matter how good it is still having to, be noticed because it's in the atmosphere and in everything around us, and it has affected everything. So it kind of seems something like that. Which,
in fact, like the Japanese are taking ships off the bottom of the ocean because they're after the metal that hasn't had exposure to radioactivity.
Yeah, the pre 1945 Hiroshima.
Like all the treasure hunters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're these ancient ships are just vanishing from the bottom of the ocean because of that.
So I've got some stuff, if you don't mind me chiming in for questions and just the scenario. Cause I had something very strange. I'll get to that probably last just cause I have some questions first. So Leslie, when you talked about yours in the beginning, you said there was the white light and it, was just like and gone. And you had an orange light that was, kind of similar. Were they singular lights or were they in a pattern? Because so when I was about the same age, I was probably maybe 12, 13. Now I don't know for sure. Like I said, I don't know what I saw. I was young. I didn't see it very long. I don't have enough evidence for me to make a determination of whether or not I saw something or not. I just remember we're from the middle of nowhere. We were out in the old farm truck. We drove up in this field. It's just acres and acres of field and there's wooded area around it, but we were in the field area. And my little brother and I were in the back of this truck, just toting around in the bed of the truck. And we parked for something. I think we were camping up there or something. And we remember like looking up, but it was like they were white lights. They weren't blinking or anything. They were solid, but they were almost like a triangle.
Yes. There's
like shape.
There's frequently people see these black triangles and they'll have a white light in each corner and sometimes one in the center underneath at the bottom.
Yeah. Cause what I saw was it was really far away. And so I didn't see if there was a structure. It was kind of, I just saw the three lights, but it did this weird like ziggy zag thing. Like it was making the shape of a star and then it just shot off and was gone.
Yeah.
And we were both just like, what the heck? Like that was weird. And we didn't think we didn't think anything of it.
That's a very common sighting. In fact, here on the West Coast, and in Nevada area, like Area 51, the Black Triangle UFOs are frequent visitors, actually.
Yeah, because this would have been probably in 2002.
In New York.
When this happened?
Yeah, in New York, we hear a lot of reports about the triangle ones, and in Denmark, too.
You said you had like friends with you that saw it also?
Family.
Just my little brother, but I don't know if he remembers it or not, because if I was like 10 or 12, he's 2 years younger than me, so I don't know if he remembers it or not. I just remember looking at it being like, hey, did you see that? And he's like, yeah, that was weird. We were like, what is that? We were like, we don't know.
So this is nighttime, right?
Yeah.
Was it nighttime?
Yeah. And it was pretty far away, so it wasn't even like, it didn't even seem like it wanted anything to do with us. Like it wasn't close, it wasn't getting close, it was just way, way off. And we just saw it do a little jig and then it took off and I was like, thank God.
Yeah, it's not coming after us.
Yeah. I was like, should I be scared? But me, I was always very curious. I mean, I've always been, that weird kid that you can't take me anywhere because I'm like, something's in here and it's creepy, but nobody knows what it is. And again, same thing. You don't tell anybody because then you're the freakazoid.
Yeah.
That season did, I know when there's dead people, like, we all have seen that movie. See, I was just wondering about that. And then I never until recently had anything remotely close that I would probably classify as an alien encounter. Now, I do have very vivid dreams, so I don't know if I'm comfortable enough saying, I don't know. I want your guys' opinion on what happened because it's really weird. It's just really fucked up. So I was just going to bed like normal. Okay. And I was asleep, minding my own beeswax. Next thing I know, it was like I was awake. Like I have a hard time sleeping anyway, so I can't sleep. Then it was like black. And then boom, I was on this table, but I was like, I don't know if I was like completely naked or what, but I know that I was strapped down. So like across my shoulders, like above my boobs and like where my shoulders are, there was like a strap and I couldn't really move my head a lot. And like right, almost where like my pelvic bone would be, like, my hips are, that I had another band or something hold me down there. My legs were held down. My arms were to my side, like directly to my sides, and I couldn't move them. And I remember looking up because I was trying to soak in everything I could because usually whenever I dream, even if it's real vivid, I can typically remember a lot of stuff. I'm really good at looking around and being aware. And you know when you go to the dentist and they bring that light down so they could see in your mouth and it's super bright in your eyes so you can't, it like blinds you, kind of?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I remember seeing it, but it was a round, like metal light with this huge, I mean, it was so bright that I could barely see anything. But like out of where the light started to kind of dim and I could see, there were two, what looked like when you were describing the tall grays. That's what I was curious about because there were two of them. They didn't appear to have clothes on. They were just super skinny. They had these long, lanky arms. They had these huge, long gray fingers. And they had these, big black eyes and like a little, slitty thing for a mouth, kind of. But I couldn't really see if they had a nose or anything. But what's weird about it is
that wasn't weird.
Oh no. So okay, yes, it's weird, but compared to what other people have told me they've seen,
yeah.
So far we're on a typical visitation here,
right?
But here's where it gets weird. All right, so right here, we're going to use this little guy's little demonstration. Where their eyes come up here and where it would be like that nice round bulbous, it had this huge frill, like a triceratops. Like its head went out.
Okay.
Like almost like an ice cream, or like I always tell people, when you scoop the pumpkin stuff, you get the little decorate your pumpkin kit at the store, and it has that weird like orange scoop. If you took the scoop and you flipped it on its head, it had that weird frill thing like up at the top, and it was like really wide, almost like a Dish Network dish on the back of this thing's head.
This sounds to me like the insectoids. We're in contact with a young man who he claims he's been having sex with an insectoid queen, and frequently when about 10% of abductees report sexual encounters. And
no, mine was not at all. There's more.
No,
it had nothing to do with my goodies.
She hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, but the insectoids, the way I sent him like hundreds of pictures to say, because he couldn't draw it. But I sent him hundreds of pictures, and the one he picked is exactly like you're describing. It's like a gray alien, but it had a kind of like a triceratops.
It just had like like a little triceratops frill that just kind of like sunk in a little bit, like a little scoop. But other than that, it was just really tall, skinny gray.
Right.
So there was one that was really obvious, like I could see it really well because it was far enough away from the light that I could not be blinded. Then there was another one standing right next to it where I could see most of it, but it was still kind of in that, and it looked about the same, but I couldn't see its head because it was so close to the light. When I was trying to look at its head, I was back at, blinding light. And then I thought that I saw maybe like a third one's like shoulder, almost like they were standing like right next to each other, and they were looking at me, like looking down at me, like they were a little bit confused, which there's a reason why I think that's relevant. But it's almost like they were confused, and then they would like turn, but they weren't they almost looked like they were, moving like they were talking, but they weren't talking. but they were communicating to each other, and they would like
use
look back down at
telepathy
me.
usually, yeah.
And then they would like look at each other, and they would look back down at me. And then I remember one of them, I just remember it reaching out, and I remember looking, I got just enough, like tilted my head down where I could see my belly button. And I remember it was like a red beam that I just remember it was on my belly, by my belly button. And it was like it felt like something was moving around, like somebody was like stirring my guts or something. And then next thing I know, there was like another red beam, and it closed up the same hole that it came in and then left it. Now, why I think that's relevant is, and that concludes this week's episode. Thank you again for tuning in. And don't forget to join us next week as we round it out with part 2. And thank you again to the Shaws for their participation and appearance here on the show. It is much appreciated. See ya. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. If you wouldn't mind, please take a moment and rate and review the show wherever you're listening. I know it might not seem like much, but it greatly helps the show by allowing us to be found more easily when other listeners search for us. If you have a chance, head on over to www.patreon.com/Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy and become a patron. Members of the Big Show tier get bonus materials, personalized shout-outs, access to the private Discord server, and video versions of episodes, both regular and members only, that are raw and unedited. So they're always a good time. As an added thank you to the Big Show patrons, we also are going to be giving out custom stickers and mini prints after 3 months of membership. I'm currently offering a 7-day free trial, so head on over and see how awesome being a member can be. Before you go, click the link in the description and grab yourself or someone you know some of the self-designed merch, or make a donation to help keep the show going and fund future events and investigations. T-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and magnets can be found on the TeePublic site, and they have sales at least once a month. I believe it is 30 or 35% off. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly how much, but keep checking back and get them when they're discounts. They have $16 tees, and it's great. For handmade crochet items such as Nessie, Mothman, Aliens, Fresno Nightcrawlers, and the little ghosts, or a big ghost, as well as pants, swimwear, the best tumblers I have found yet as far as merch is concerned, dresses, office supplies, and more, visit the Square merch store. You can also follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Threads, and TikTok. If you have any questions, topic recommendations, or personal encounters, please don't hesitate to send them in to cryptidscreepsandconspiracy@gmail.com or submit them through the contact form at www.cryptidscreepsandconspiracy.com. I would love to hear from you and share your experience on a special listener episode. Just make sure to specify that I have permission to add your encounter to the show, and let me know whether you would like to have your real name or an alias to maintain confidentiality. Thank you again so much for all your support, and I'll see you next time, my friend.